Is there a new best driver of 2022? I'm putting the Callaway Rogue ST Max against the new Titleist TSR2 to find out if there's a new champion. Right, first up let's start with the Callaway. I've got the Rogue ST Max here, which is the model that I picked as the best driver of 2022 earlier in the year. I think the big thing you see here straight away is this is a big profile driver head. It has max in the name, and that's because it's going to give you that max forgiveness, max distance, but there are things that balance out because of that. This is a lot bigger head, the back's very elongated, it doesn't look small, compact, it doesn't necessarily look very player-like over the ball, but what you're losing I guess in terms of that look is maximum forgiveness, so it's a bit of a balance of the two. Now the big thing I love about this consistently is just how stable it's been from a variety of strikes and just how strong the ball flight is. Straight off I didn't hit that perfect and it's flown out easily 220 with a bad strike in the middle of winter, so pretty good. Oh, that was such a nice strike. You do get a really nice high consistent ball flight with this, which is something that's going to be key for people who want to get that extra carry distance because it's going to give you that maximum hang time. One thing I would say is just because of the larger nature of the club head, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get as quick a club head speed because obviously you've got a bigger mass to move in the air. So in terms of potential club head speed, I would say I get a little bit lower than normal with this, but obviously that's balancing out with other things. I mean, 3 out of the 4 I've hit so far, I've literally all landed dead on in the same place. So in terms of consistency, there's not much out there that can beat this. Overall I would say I just really like the ball flight, the control and the consistency that we get with this. I think between the two of these, the Titleist has to take the win for the best looking. I mean, I just love the classic look of this. It's so simplistic, it has that lovely gloss finish on the top. I think what's important for me is it's a little bit more compact, which I really like the look of to suit my eye. But then again, for someone who wants something more forgiving, maybe actually that bigger shaping of the Callaway would be a preference. As with all things to do with looks, it's always kind of going to be a little bit subjective. Now, obviously these two are set up slightly differently. I do actually have 9-degree heads in both of them, but we do have different shafts because I've been to fittings with both Titleist and Callaway, and I've just got the shaft in that the fitter thought worked best with that model. So obviously that's going to affect the performance, but then again, both of these are optimised to be the best that brand think they can fit me into. So really I think that's the best way to put them head to head. Now, even though this is a smaller head, I feel like the stability really is still there. I've also got a really nice high ball flight with this, and actually in terms of height, that's coming out a little bit higher than the Rogue so far, so it really depends what you want. If you want that extra height, maybe that'll help. For me, I always do hit it a little bit too high, so potentially something that's lower would help, but actually the spin's really good here. It's in the low 2000s, so it's really going to balance well with that height and mean that I don't lose too much distance because of it. Now it's pretty interesting because this club head is smaller, I do react to that and swing it a little bit faster. So yes, it's winter, I'm wrapped up a bit, but I'm getting 94 mph out of this compared to 92 that I was getting with the Callaway. So it just shows you that head size does play a factor in kind of the aerodynamics, how you can move the club through the air, and then again how far you can hit it. This is going a little bit further on average so far, so my best one's out at 230, which in the cold weather and the wind is pretty good. I love the sound with this. It's probably a little bit higher pitched than we see with the Callaway. There's definitely quite a drastic difference in terms of the two, but a lot of that's going to come down to the difference in shaping and sizing and materiality. But yeah, again, that's just carried 233, so I am getting almost about 10 yards more distance out of this model, which is interesting because obviously there's a smaller head so I can move it a bit faster, but I actually have this spec'd in a shorter shaft. So a lot of people would say if you move into a longer shaft, you're going to be able to move it quicker and get more distance, but Actually what we're seeing here is the opposite. I'm striking it a little bit better because I've got that shorter shaft and more consistency, and that's matching in really well at my distance. On my good ones, this definitely flies higher, but what I like about that is I didn't hit on my best. It launched a bit too high. It still carried 228 and the spin stayed in 2,200, so like 3 of my 4 shots there, the spin has been within 100 RPM of each other. There's one I hit quite high off the face, the spin dropped down a little bit there, it was a bit drop kicky, but of the 3 that I struck really nicely, the spin was so consistent, which is obviously going to really help in terms of optimizing your shot and controlling the ball. It's weird just how much the looks and the feel of a club like affect the performance. I think a lot of people would think, why are you talking about how it looks? Like, that's going to vary for everyone and the feel and the looks don't really matter, but actually I think if you look at something and you're really confident with it over the ball, that's only going to help your performance. For me, that kind of feeds back in terms of speed. I feel really confident with how this looks over the ball, so I can go ahead and hit it a little bit harder, and it's really helped me out in terms of distance there. I mean, that was my longest so far at 234, which is at least 10 yards longer than anything that I saw with the Rogue today, so pretty good. So if we look at the numbers a little bit more in depth, overall it was pretty interesting. In the end, I averaged 220 with the Callaway Rogue ST and 229 with the Titleist TSR2, so I was getting nearly 10 yards extra distance out of the Titleist, which is pretty impressive. Now, one thing that I really liked about this, and I think that helped the distance, was that the spin was so consistent. Out of the 5 shots that I hit here, 4 of them were within 100 RPM of each other in terms of spin. Now, the other one did drop down quite a bit, but I hit that quite high off the face. In the Callaway, the spin was quite a bit higher. I had a few creeping up into the 3000s compared to like 2200. You could say that would help with like start line and control, but it did hurt me a little bit in terms of that distance. I also say it was a little bit more inconsistent across the pack because I had one in the 1000s, one in the 2000s, and a few in the 3000s. So a bit of a bigger spread there in terms of spin. Both of these launched pretty high. In fact, there was only like 3 foot of difference in terms of that max height. So overall, I'd say both of these launched pretty high, but I do hit the ball pretty high. So there's not really anything to pick them apart in terms of that height thing. If we look at dispersion, both were actually really great, and to be honest, I had one that I pulled quite far left with the Callaway, but other than that, they were very similar. So in terms of that forgiveness and stability, pretty much on a level playing field there. But I would say, because of that extra distance, I'm gonna have to give the Titleist the win here. Now, there's lots of new drivers coming out soon, so keep your eyes peeled on our channel and hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss out on any of them.